Since the beginning of time, humanity has been on an endless quest to innovate, creating tools, technologies, and ideas that have shaped our world for the better. Some of these inventions have saved lives, made us more productive, and propelled civilization forward. But not all of humanity's creations have been virtuous. Many reflect our darker side, our capacity for harm, greed, and disregard for the future. For every amazing innovation that's changed the world, there are others that should never have left the drawing board. Take plastic, for instance, a material so useful that life without it feels unimaginable. Yet it's also responsible for disasters like the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. So join us as we uncover 15 shocking inventions that should never have been made and the lessons we can learn from them. Let's kick off things with number 15, Agent Orange. Initially developed as a herbicide to enhance crop growth, Agent Orange became one of history's most devastating wartime inventions. During the Vietnam War, the U.S. military used it extensively to deforest jungles and destroy enemy crops under Operation Ranch Hand. From 1961 to 1971, over 20 million gallons of herbicides, including 13 million of Agent Orange, were sprayed across Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, impacting millions of acres. But Agent Orange contained dioxin, a deadly carcinogen. Its aftermath was catastrophic. Vietnamese civilians suffered birth defects, cancer, and neurological disorders. It's estimated that 400,000 people were killed or maimed, while 500,000 children were born with severe birth defects. Returning U.S. soldiers were also affected, experiencing rashes, cancer, and psychological trauma, which passed on to their families. The environmental destruction and human suffering caused by Agent Orange make it one of the most haunting examples of science misused in warfare. Number 14. The Brazen Bull. The Brazen Bull is one of history's darkest inventions, combining cruelty and artistry in the most horrifying way possible. Commissioned by Phalaris, the tyrant of Akragas, this cool bronze statue was designed by Perillos of Athens around 570 BC. Its key purpose? Well, torture and execution. The bull was hollow, with a door for placing victims inside. A fire lit beneath would roast the victim alive, while tubes inside distorted their screams into bull-like sounds. Phalaris delighted in this gruesome spectacle, even collecting the victims' bones to make jewelry. The irony? When Perillos demonstrated the device's efficacy, Phalaris shoved him inside, killing him shortly after. Phalaris himself met a poetic end, overthrown and executed in the very bull he commissioned. The Brazen Bull remains a grim symbol of humanity's capacity for cruelty, a reminder of how power can corrupt and dehumanize even the most creative minds. Number 13. Nuclear bomb. Few inventions have captured humanity's brilliance and destructiveness as the nuclear bomb. As Oppenheimer said upon witnessing its power, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Created during World War II under the Manhattan Project, it wasn't just a weapon. It was the moment humanity learned it could end its own existence with the push of a button. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki killed hundreds of thousands of people in an instant and left even more suffering for decades from radiation exposure. And while some argue the bomb ended the war, it also started a chilling new era, the nuclear arms race. Today, stockpiles of nuclear weapons sit in silos worldwide, capable of destroying the planet many times over. Was this invention brilliant? Yes. Necessary? Maybe. But ethical? Hardly. The nuclear bomb remains the ultimate reminder that not everything humans are capable of creating should ever exist. Number 12. Urban baby window cages. In the early 20th century, a parenting trend emerged that seems unthinkable today. Baby cages attached to apartment windows. These contraptions, resembling chicken coops, were designed to give city-dwelling babies fresh air and sunlight without leaving the apartment. The idea was rooted in the belief that airing out children would strengthen their health and purify their blood. Parents living in cramped, high-rise apartments would suspend their babies in these wire cages hundreds of feet above the street, trusting flimsy bolts to hold their children safely in place. The potential dangers were obvious, from bird droppings to hailstorms and the ever-present risk of a cage falling. These tools were a nightmare waiting to happen. Thankfully, baby cages didn't stay popular for long. They remain a strange and unsettling example of how societal norms and parenting practices can sometimes go to dangerous extremes. Number 11. Hydrogen blimps. Few inventions have proven as disastrous as hydrogen blimps. These airships, filled with highly flammable hydrogen gas, were essentially flying fire hazards. Though they symbolized luxury and technological ambition in their time, their legacy is one of repeated tragedy. The Hindenburg disaster of 1937 is the most infamous example, but it was far from the only one. From 1908 to 1937, more than 20 hydrogen airships crashed, often bursting into flames. These accidents occurred during takeoff, in-flight, and docking, highlighting the inherent risks of using such volatile fuel. Nazi Germany's use of hydrogen blimps was partly due to the US restricting helium exports, but it didn't excuse the staggering loss of life. Eventually, helium replaced hydrogen as a safer alternative, but by then, the damage was done. The era of hydrogen airships remains a cautionary tale about the dangers of prioritizing ambition over safety. Number 10. Bat bombs. The bat bomb might sound like a comic book weapon, but it was a real and terrifying wartime invention. After the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, Pennsylvania dentist Lytle S. Adams proposed an unusual plan. Attach small incendiary bombs to bats and release them over Japanese cities, many of which were made of wood and thatch. The idea was that the bats, seeking shelter in buildings, would ignite countless fires simultaneously. Adams pitched his plan to Washington, and remarkably, it was approved under the code name Project X-Ray. Tests were conducted using Mexican free-tailed bats, but the project ran into numerous problems, including accidental fires that destroyed a hangar and a general's car. Despite $2 million in funding, the project was abandoned when the Manhattan Project gained momentum. While the bat bomb never became a reality, it stands as one of the most bizarre and ethically questionable wartime experiments in history. Number 9. The shoe-fitting fluoroscope. In the 1920s, the shoe-fitting fluoroscope emerged as a marvel of retail technology designed to help parents ensure their children's shoes fit properly. Using X-ray imaging, this device allowed customers to see a real-time view of their feet inside the shoe. It seemed innovative, even exciting, until its horrifying health consequences came to light. A typical 20-second session delivered an alarming dose of radiation, 13 Roentgen in US models, while British petoscopes emitted lower but still harmful levels. Radiation scattered beyond the device, exposing not just the feet, but everyone nearby: salespeople, customers, and children. Over time, prolonged exposure caused severe injuries: dermatitis, ulcerations, burns requiring amputations, and even basal cell carcinoma. Despite growing evidence of harm, these machines were in use for decades, with bans only arriving in the 1970s. By then, many had already suffered irreparable damage. The shoe-fitting fluoroscope is a chilling example of how ignorance of science can lead to lasting tragedy. Number 8. Electric shock dog collars. Cruel isn't even the right word for this creepy invention. It's outright inhumane. Marketed as a training tool, electric shock collars claim to fix behaviors like barking, wandering, or disobedience by zapping your dog's neck with electricity. Let that sink in. It's pain dressed up as discipline. The problem? Dogs don't learn why they're being shocked. They just associate the pain with whatever's around them. This leads to confusion, fear, and often lasting psychological damage. Many dogs subjected to shock collars develop anxiety, aggression, or a breakdown in trust. The physical effects can include burns or nerve damage, while the emotional toll is far worse. Here's the key way. Positive reinforcement works better. Teaching dogs through love and patience rather than fear strengthens your bond and achieves lasting results. Shock collars are nothing more than a lazy shortcut, a convenience that comes at the expense of an animal's well-being. We mean, which stupid would shock their dog? It's inhumane. Number 7. The Trico system. Marketed as a groundbreaking innovation in beauty, the Trico system entered salons in 1914, promising permanent hair removal using X-rays. Women flocked to the treatment, enduring up to 20 sessions to eliminate unwanted facial hair. But beneath the promise of glamour lay a deadly flaw. The device used direct X-ray beams, exposing users to harmful levels of radiation. At first, the results seemed harmless. However, over time, women suffered horrifying side effects: skin pigmentation, ulcerations, atrophy, keratoses, and even cancer. In extreme cases, the damage led to death. By the 1940s, reports of injuries flooded medical journals, and the AMA raised alarms. The Trico system highlights humanity's dangerous ignorance of radiation's effects during its early discovery. Despite causing untold suffering, it took decades for such devices to disappear, leaving behind a legacy of harm. The Trico system serves as a haunting reminder of how unregulated science can turn innovation into devastation. Now, let's talk about number 6, plastic carrier bags. When Swedish engineer Sten Gustaf Thulin invented the plastic bag in 1965, he envisioned a durable, reusable product that would replace paper bags and reduce deforestation. Ironically, what was intended to be an eco-friendly solution became one of the largest environmental disasters in the world. Today, single-use plastic bags are everywhere, clogging oceans, polluting landscapes, and wreaking havoc on ecosystems. The statistics are horrifying. Some studies predict that by 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean by weight than fish. These bags don't just harm marine life. Many animals mistake them for food, leading to fatal blockages. They also take centuries to biodegrade, piling up in landfills and leaching harmful chemicals into the soil and water. Thankfully, global efforts to curb plastic bag use are gaining momentum. But reversing decades of damage requires more than policy changes. It demands a shift in how we think about convenience and sustainability. So, make a promise that you don't use plastic bags. Number 5, the Radium Girls. In the early 20th century, glowing watches and dials captivated consumers, but the magic came at a deadly cost. The luminescent paint responsible for the glow contained radium, a radioactive element. Women hired to apply the paint, later known as the Radium Girls, were instructed to shape their brushes with their lips, unknowingly ingesting toxic radium daily. At first, the job seemed glamorous, even prestigious. The women, nicknamed Ghost Girls, glowed faintly due to the radium dust covering their bodies. But the consequences were horrific. Radium accumulated in their bones, causing necrosis, anemia, and horrific conditions like radium jaw, where the jawbone would literally disintegrate. Despite their suffering, employers denied the dangers, blaming other causes. It wasn't until the Radium Girls fought back, leading to landmark lawsuits, that labor laws began to change. Their bravery exposed the dangers of unchecked corporate greed and left a legacy that still protects workers today. Number 4, cigarettes. It's common knowledge today that smoking is harmful, but for decades, cigarettes were marketed as a harmless indulgence. The first commercially sold cigarette was introduced in 1865 by Washington Duke on his North Carolina farm, hand-rolled and sold to soldiers after the Civil War. By the early 20th century, cigarette production was industrialized, and smoking became a global habit. In the late 1940s and 50s, researchers like Richard Dahl in Britain began linking smoking to lung cancer. Dahl's studies showed an undeniable connection. 649 cases of lung cancer revealed only 2 non-smokers. This led to his own decision to quit smoking and fueled public health efforts. By 1956, evidence was overwhelming, leading to advertising restrictions, higher taxes, and public awareness campaigns. Despite restrictions, cigarettes remain a global health crisis. The World Health Organization reports that tobacco kills over 7 million people annually, including 890,000 from secondhand smoke. Cigarettes are a stark reminder of the deadly consequences of unchecked corporate influence and marketing. Number 3. Gunpowder. Gunpowder, the world's first chemical explosive, was discovered around AD 850 by Chinese alchemists searching for an elixir of life. Instead of immortality, they found a substance that changed the course of history. By the 10th century, gunpowder was used in weapons like flamethrowers, grenades, and cannons. These innovations revolutionized Chinese warfare, but it wasn't long before gunpowder made its way to Europe, where its applications were refined and expanded. European armies used gunpowder to transform medieval warfare. Cannons and firearms reshaped battles, fortified castles were rendered obsolete, and the power dynamics of nations shifted dramatically. Over time, gunpowder became a key tool in territorial expansion and conquest, affecting borders and civilizations worldwide. Though traditional gunpowder has been replaced by smokeless powder in modern ammunition, its legacy endures. Gunpowder revolutionized technology and warfare, but it also brought destruction and bloodshed. Number 2. Gas-resistant strollers. In the late 1930s, fear of chemical warfare led to the creation of one of the strangest inventions in history, the gas-proof pram. Developed by F.W. Mills in Kent, England, these strollers were designed to protect babies from the potential horrors of mustard and chlorine gas during German air raids. Equipped with a glass panel lid and a gas filter on top, the prams aimed to create a sealed environment for infants. A motor horn bulb on the rear allowed parents to pump out stale air, providing ventilation. While these strollers were a product of necessity, they also symbolized the paranoia and uncertainty of the pre-P era. Luckily, these eerie contraptions were never mass-produced or tested in combat situations, as gas attacks on civilians never materialized. However, the mere existence of the gas-proof pram serves as a haunting reminder of the lengths humanity will go to protect the vulnerable in times of fear. It's innovation, but at what psychological cost? Number 1. The cotton gin. Eli Whitney's invention of the cotton gin in 1793 revolutionized the American cotton industry. By making it easier to separate cotton fibers from seeds, it transformed the production of textiles and boosted profits. But this progress came at a devastating cost. While the cotton gin reduced the labor required for processing, it dramatically increased the demand for raw cotton, and with it, the demand for enslaved labor. Southern plantations expanded to meet the booming demand, leading to a sharp rise in slavery. In 1790, there were 6 slave states in the U.S. By 1860, that number had more than doubled. The machine inadvertently fueled an economy built on human suffering, setting the stage for the Civil War. Though the cotton gin is hailed as a technological marvel, its unintended consequences highlight how even the simplest inventions can have devastating ripple effects. It serves as a sobering reminder of how progress and exploitation can go hand in hand. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon in the next one.